discussion in this session, I will ask some a question, okay, like hands up question for all of you. Thank you so much for coming in this session. So first question for all of you. Which one do you prefer to choose? Money or social worker? Oke, cuan atau kerja sosial nih? Oke, untuk, oke. For those of you who choose social worker, raise your hands. Oh, sungguh realistis ya ruangan ini. Oke. Which one of you choose cuan? Oke, tepuk tangan untuk yang jujur siang ini. Oke. Nah, so I have a living proof that actually you can have both cuan and social worker. Saya akan panggilkan speaker pertama untuk sesi ini, Maria Harvanti, Miss Indonesia 2015. Oke, saya nggak boleh berdiri sebelah Mbak Maria deket-deket karena ntar ketahuan ya. Ada gini rasio antara kami berdua. Oke, so second speaker. Tadi udah hands up question, sekarang saya mau dengar suaranya nih, biar nggak ngantuk ya. Oke, there is 3 country I choose for you in Southeast Asia. Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapura. Mana yang menurut teman-teman semua adalah negara paling inovatif? Saya hitung sampai 3 suaranya. 1, 2, 3. Oke. Nasionalismenya agak kurang ya, nggak apa-apa. Oke. Tapi I have one speaker from the 3 negara yang tadi saya sebutkan. Sungguh spesial karena jauh-jauh datang dari Malaysia. He is one of UMNO in political party in Malaysia. Syahril Hamdan. Tepuk tangan untuk Pak Syahril. Oke, maunya dipanggil Syahril aja biar karena young ya, young and youth, so I will call you Syahril. Okay, it's okay? Okay. Okay, so let's move on to our discussion. Mbak Maria akan memulai dulu. Maria will tell to all of us in this room, what is your best idea so far in your work, social work, and you also have a good career. You can play both and dua-duanya sukses. Silakan Mbak Maria.
Yeah. Thank you Mbak Paskalis. Before I start sharing, I want to greet everyone here. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah. I actually have prepared a presentation for today. But because some technical errors, I cannot display it to you guys. Is that okay? Okay, semoga sebentar lagi bisa kesetel. Yeah, so the best ideas I've ever heard and I've ever done myself is volunteerism. Volunteerism has changed my life. I found this passion of volunteering myself for social issues ever since I was in university. Nah, mungkin bisa di next slide-nya. Yeah. So I dedicate my time in university as a teaching assistant. Waktu itu saya mengajar satu pelajaran statistik for business and economics. Pasti di sini banyak yang suka ya pelajaran statistik ya. Oh, I can tell from your face. Yeah, and then because my love for education was so strong, I also applied for a chance to teach underprivileged children in remote areas but abroad. It was in China, and the program is called Global Community Development Program. So what I did there, I taught some basic stuff like English lessons, like basic English lessons, and also introduced professions to the underprivileged kids because they didn't really know what happened outside their area. So next, yeah. Because of my love for the social issues, I talked to myself, like, what can I do to reach out more people in terms of helping? So I researched about pageants, and I saw many visions of each pageant. And I found one that has a really good vision, which is Beauty with a Purpose, where every Miss Indonesia chosen has to do their own social projects in their reigning year. So I chose Miss Indonesia, I applied, And I'm from Yogyakarta, and I was the first Yogyakarta woman who won Miss Indonesia in 2015. Yeah. So I worked really hard on that year and represented Miss Indonesia and Miss World, where I got a chance and to be supported by so many people and got trained by so many great experts. And then I became the runner-up of Miss World at that time. So next. Yeah, this is the project that I did in 2015. I built sanitation facilities and also educate people about the importance of PHBS, if you ever heard of it, perilaku hidup bersih dan sehat. The way we implement sanitation in our daily lives is really important. And in Pandeglang area, many people don't know that. Next. So I keep this volunteering spirit in myself that in 2016 with Miss World organization, because at that time I won as the top 3 in the pageant, I wanted to volunteer more, and I asked to the Miss World organization, what can I do? So they said, yeah, you can join us in some visits to underdeveloped countries. Like the first one is Kenya. So it was the right slide, right? Because I cannot really see it. Yeah, so I work with Smile Train organization. Ada yang pernah dengar Smile Train di sini? Belum ya? Semua berarti anak-anak HI ya? Atau ada anak ekonomi di sini? Anak FKM, Fakultas Kesehatan Masyarakat? Yeah, so Smile Train is basically providing cleft lips and palate surgery. Jadi untuk anak-anak yang bibir sumbing dan langit-langitnya itu terbelah. Jadi what I did with Miss World is we raise funds. We also promote the news for the people who have cleft lips, because you're not doomed. Your life is not that unfortunate, because you can have free help from us. Next. And then in 2017, this one is not the underdeveloped country, it is South Africa. And if you can see one big man in the middle of the top row, it's the grandchild of Nelson Mandela. So I work with Rise Against Hunger, and he was the brand ambassador of Rise Against Hunger, which provides food relief in underprivileged areas in South Africa and all across Africa. So we pack meals, pack nutritious meals, and we also held campaign for Nelson Mandela Day at that time. Next. Yeah, back in Indonesia, I was offered to join in one of corporate foundation. Have you ever heard of Japa Comfit here? It's an agriculture company. So it has you must know the product. It's Greenfield, susu Greenfield, ada yang suka? Yeah, so good food. Yes. Yeah, but they not just provide the consumer goods. They have like meat supply business to business, and also pakan ternak, feed for animals. So the foundation is concerned about agriculture, education, and nutrition. I was their ambassador from 2017 to 2018, and from last year until now, I became I take care of their public relations of the foundation. So I still work there. Next. Yeah, and then this is my social foundation that I built in 2018. Next. Most of you may ask, like, what is Bangun Sekolah? Bangun Sekolah itu bukannya tanggung jawab dari Kemendikbud ya, gitu. Banyak sekali yang bertanya itu. Tapi actually Bangun Sekolah is not concerned mainly on the infrastructure, but we focus more on the human resources. So kita bangun sumber daya manusianya. So as you can see, what we did is we're a non-profit organization, and we aim to empower youth to become our volunteers, because I hold really close to my heart that volunteerism can change lives. So we provide trainings. Mainly the trainings is computer literacy and also like introduction to professions. And next year we're going to have collaboration with Sampurna University for teachers training as well. Next. Yeah, as you can see, we have community-led construction for schools that have really bad facilities. But we don't just like ask construction workers to build the school. We want the people in the area to help build the school, if you know what I mean. So we so they can have sense of belonging. So after community-led construction, we also support the facilities of learning and also health trainings. Ini our project since the beginning of 2018 till 2019. Ya, jadi dari awal 2018 kita sudah punya 3 sekolah dampingan. Next. Ya, ini yang pertama di Pandeglang. Karena sekolahnya itu sangat-sangat parah keadaannya. Mungkin boleh ke previous slide sebentar. Previous slide sebentar. Nah, ya, di sebelah kiri itu adalah sekolah di Pandeglang sebelum kita bantu. Jadi sekolahnya itu banyak anak-anak mengeluh kepada saya bahwa sekolahnya itu terlihat seperti kandang. Dan kita dibilang, ini anak sekolah kandang, sering banget dibilang kayak gitu. Dan what we did, we not just provide trainings, we built the school as well because it's really unsafe for the students to to study in that kind of school. Next. Ya, so kita bangun dari awal kelas-kelasnya. Next. Dan kita mengajarkan technology literacy program. Mungkin ada yang bertanya-tanya apa yang diajarin sih di technology literacy? So we donated computers. Kita memperkenalkan perangkat komputer, kita juga mengajarkan mereka Microsoft Office, bagaimana cara menggunakannya. Terus buat anak-anak SMP, kita adakan juga simulasi UN berbasis komputer. Gitu. Jadi benar-benar memperkenalkan mereka, kita mau bahwa ketidakmerataan ini cepat terpecahkan gitu antara kualitas pendidikan di desa dan di kota. And also this in Legok, Tangerang, Banten. The school was not really bad in terms of condition, so we just renovated it. Next. Yeah, this is the renovated school. Next. And we also held pelatihan TIK, Teknologi Informasi dan Komunikasi. It's almost the same like the project in Pandeglang. Next. And this is the one that's still developing right now. So kita melakukan pendampingan sekolah for at least 6 months. Jadi kita tidak datang melatih sehari terus kita pergi, tidak. Selama 6 bulan kita benar-benar ukur perubahan kemampuannya seperti apa dan apa yang sudah kita berikan kita make sure bahwa mereka tetap melakukannya. Yeah, next. And this is the program. So I really hope that everybody here is supporting and maybe want to apply to become volunteers. You guys are, I'm really waiting for you guys' participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mbak Maria. So beautiful woman with volunteerism is not hoax ya. Ada Maria Harvanti di sini with the great picture and the story. And by the way, we still waiting for one speaker more. He's on the way. Sebentar lagi akan hadir. Nah sebelumnya, siapa ya? Mau dengar siapa yang ditunggu-tunggu? Jadi kita masih nunggu Ridwan Kamil. Jadi jangan kemana-mana. Just stay here karena pasti akan semakin menarik. Tapi kita akan move on to our next speaker, Syahril Hamdan. Same question with Maria. Kalau tadi Maria lebih banyak soal education, volunteerism. You work in political party, young, and then you also have a fund capital. So what is your best idea to help inequality with your job right now?
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Oh, it feels like in school. Good afternoon, Maria, Pak Dino, Ibu, and everyone here present. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. It was really inspiring to hear you speak, Maria. And I feel slightly hamstrung because apa yang akan saya akan cakap sedikitlah bahasa Melayu, bahasa Malaysia dan English. I won't pretend to be able to speak bahasa Indonesia, although it's mirip tapi tak sama. Nanti kalau saya cuba nanti banyak yang tertawa. So why I feel slightly hamstrung, Maria, because what I was about to say, it's not something that I have done. Idea yang paling menarik yang saya lalui ataupun yang saya fikirkan bukanlah satu perkara yang sudah saya laksanakan. Tetapi is an idea that I feel is really good and really important as young people to consider in terms of how we manage society and economy. And the idea that I have, or I've come across, is the idea of full employment. Full employment bermakna penganggurannya sifar, kosong, nol. Indonesia is nol, right? Okay. No pengangguran. Ataupun kalau ada pun pengangguran sikit, 1 or 2%. In Indonesia, for example, if I remember correctly, your unemployment rate is about 5 to 6%. and I imagine your youth unemployment, pengangguran untuk belia, is higher. It's usually 11, 12, 13%. That's not something that I think we should accept atau terima as something that is normal. But before we go there, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? What is the problem that exercises my passion? And the problem that exercises my passion that I want to speak here today is the problem of inequality. Atau di dalam bahasa Indonesianya macam mana? Kesenjangan ekonomi. Whereby I think most of the problems that we face today in the world, the toxic socio-political environment in which we live, the polarization, the divisions, racism, xenophobia, anti-migrant sentiment, all these things, I think can be traced back in one degree or another to economic discontent among the masses. This is something that I think is increasingly true. Whether it is Brexit, the debates around Brexit, kalau di United Kingdom, whether it is, like I said just now, anti-migrant sentiment or any social unrests, many of these things come from economic discontent. For example, if you see a Pew Global Research Center, it's a research center study in 2014, found that 60% of the population in emerging economies like ours, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, 60% feel that the gap between the rich and the poor is a big problem. 60% ni ramai kan, banyak, majority. And I think this is where we start realizing that when you look at the data, it's understandable kenapa ramai orang feel uncomfortable with this gap. I imagine in this audience today there will be many various ideological shades present. But I, for one, cannot accept a situation where 26 of the richest people in the world hold the same wealth as half the global population. 26 orang yang paling kaya dalam dunia ini, hartanya sama dengan separuh global population. I don't think that's right. I, for one, can't accept as normal a situation where the Gini coefficient ataupun cara yang mengira kesenjangan ini dalam rantau kita, rantau ASEAN ini, 4 out of 10. Kalau kosong, sifar, 0 is no inequality, 10 paling banyak inequality, dalam ASEAN ini 4. And then you only have incremental increases or improvements, or sometimes you go backwards. For example, in Indonesia, I read, in the 1990s, your Gini coefficient was 3.2, now it's about 4. Which means that 2 decades of growth in Indonesia has, the data says, enriched the richer and not really helped those yang dekat bawah, yang ramai. I, for one, can't accept the situation where wage to GDP growth, kalau yang familiar with economics, wage to GDP maknanya daripada semua GDP, ya, KDN, I'm not sure in Indonesia is your GDP lah, okay? Your GDP growth, GDP in Indonesia, your wage to GDP ratio is 15%. Bermakna untuk every dollar that the Indonesian economy generates, only 15 cents goes to the worker. The rest goes to corporate earnings, or presumably much less to taxes. You compare this to Australia, where the figure is 47%, or Singapore and South Korea, 43%, and you begin to realize how it is not sustainable and it is not okay. So I think all these metrics that I mentioned, Gini coefficient, the wage to GDP ratio, all these other facts and data that I've shared with you in the last couple of minutes, they have become more and more prevalent among the popular consciousness. Bermakna, for the first time in generations, the dogma of trickle-down economics. Kalau siapa yang kenal trickle-down economics means what? You just make people richer and then yang bawah pun akan kaya nanti besok. This dogma, people no longer believe uncritically. In the past, we would talk about GDP growth. So, Indonesia will be proud, 5-6% GDP growth. Malaysia will be proud, 3-4% GDP growth. Now people are saying, so what? So what if you have 5-6% GDP growth if the returns don't accrue to the mass population? And we always say, things were worse in the past. We forget that human beings live in one lifetime. So it doesn't matter to me or my generation that things might have been worse in the 1920s. It doesn't matter that things might have been worse in the 1800s. It matters that it remains that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So itulah lebih kurang the problem that I feel very passionate about. Okay, so what do we do about it? This is where it gets a bit more controversial. I think the inequality part, everybody agrees. Where it gets a bit more controversial is what are the levers that we think will solve this or start addressing this in a systemic way. So obviously, I would like to propose that the real thing we should be looking at, obviously, is wage and employment. Yes, we want to talk about creating entrepreneurs. We want to talk about creating corporate giants. These are important things, but they are important to the equation of inequality only in as much as they create better jobs at better wages. Betul tak? Kalau ada ramai perusahaan pun, kalau perusahaan-perusahaan itu tak mampu menjana pekerjaan ataupun jobs, then what is the point, right, in terms of inequality? So we look at wage and we look at employment. And that's why I said earlier that unemployment is not something that we should take for granted or we should take as normal. That has been the asas ataupun yang biasa lazim difikirkan, unemployment ini lazim, biasa. Tetapi what I'm trying to tell you is there is a different way to look at this. There is a way, imagine a world where everybody who wants a job gets a job at living wages. Everybody who wants a job and willing and able to work will be given the opportunity to work. And this is where the solution that I'm about to propose isn't sexy, isn't perhaps in tune with the 21st century thinking of, you know, it has to be non-state actors, it has to be NGO. I'm going back to the basis of economics and saying that government has a role in providing a job guarantee. I repeat, government has a role in providing a job guarantee. This sounds radical, this sounds crazy to anyone who has learned economics and macroeconomics in conventional universities. But what is exciting and why I dare come to Indonesia and speak about it is because I'm not the first politician or, you know, mid-level politician from another country to come speak about this. The person you want to look at and the literature you want to look at and the speeches you want to look at are actually in America. So people like Bernie Sanders, people like Elizabeth Warren are starting to talk about the job guarantee program in which it changes the entire way we look at how government operates. Right now, we think jobs should come only from the private sector. What I'm saying is, jobs should always come from the private sector, but wherever there is a gap in unemployment, government should step in with a job guarantee program. What kind of jobs do we do? What kind of jobs should we do? That depends on the country and the economic situation. So if we think, for example, imagine a situation where a government starts thinking, we really need to do something about the climate crisis. I'm sure in earlier sessions or in later sessions, some people will be speaking about the climate crisis and the climate emergency. That means countries like Indonesia, which is an oil exporter but a net oil importer, should start thinking about ways about how you reduce your oil dependency, your fossil fuel dependencies. That's something that we know the next generation absolutely needs from us. But more importantly, or equally importantly, it will help the trade deficit. It would help the fiscal space under which your sovereign government can operate. Another way we could think about it is what kind of jobs that we would need. We just heard Maria speak about how much she has to help in under-resourced, understaffed schools in rural areas. Don't you think that's a travesty? Why is it that governments feel hamstrung from properly resourcing and staffing the schools, public education system, in which the future generations are to be educated? So in brief, and I know there might be questions after this, and I don't want to take up too much time in explaining the particular details about it, but in brief, what it would need, what this job guarantee program would need is, number one, first, a shift away from the thinking that budget deficits is necessarily a bad thing. We've always been taught that deficit kerajaan ini atau deficit pemerintah ini is something you have to worry about. As long as your debt is issued in your own currency, in this case rupiah, this is where Indonesia has a challenge because half of your debt is in Japanese yen and in American dollars, I believe. If you can change that over a short period of time and change your debt into rupiah denominated debt, you cannot run out of your own money. Hutang pemerintah ini tidak sama dengan hutang kita. Kalau kita tak cukup duit untuk uang untuk bayar, memang kita ada masalah. Tapi kalau your pemerintah, your central bank, issues your debt in your own currency, you will never run out of money because you can always service that debt. So that's one thinking that is not really controversial, tetapi because of decades of neoliberal economics, we have forgotten that this is actually the possibility of government to do. That's one shift in thinking. Number two shift in thinking that needs to happen for job guarantee. you also need a situation where your government, your country becomes food sovereign, which I think Indonesia is. You are not a net food importer, you are a net food exporter, so that's good. Tapi Malaysia kami ada masalah. We are a net food importer. Yeah, we still import a lot of food. Secondly, you need to manage your trade deficit. In which case, Indonesia, I think it's okay. Sometimes it's in deficit, sometimes it's in surplus. If you can manage your deficit to not become too big, all of what I've just said, being okay with a budget deficit, being okay with government debt, being okay with spending money to the right places so that public services get properly funded and utilized and resourced, and and unemployment and people who want to get jobs and willing to get jobs are able to get jobs in their own daerah without having to migrate to different daerah or to migrate to countries like mine. So I think that's what I feel very, very strongly about, because inequality is something that we really need to fight against. And I think the solution lies in the changing of mindset and telling the people and telling government that it can do so much more. Thank you very much.
Maria, menarik, interesting that masih muda, you have social work, education, poverty. So volunteerism di Indonesia tidak terlalu membudaya ya. Beda kalau kita lihat di negara lain. In other country, volunteerism is in their blood. Why?
Mungkin aku agak disagree sama pernyataan Mbak bahwa di Indonesia belum berbudaya. Karena kalau kita lihat banyak sekali masyarakat Indonesia yang sudah mulai mendedikasikan dirinya terhadap suatu isu yang mereka percayai gitu. Something that they are really passionate about gitu. It doesn't have to always be education, tapi bisa juga kayak isu kesehatan, lalu isu tentang lingkungan gitu. Dan banyak sekali NGO atau komunitas-komunitas yang bisa kita ikuti untuk bisa berkontribusi pada suatu isu gitu. Jadi menurut saya mungkin memang belum semua masyarakat mengenal itu sebagai budaya, tapi I think we're getting there. Yeah.
How can we menambah itu menjadi sebuah semangat untuk masyarakat Indonesia?
Menurut saya bagaimana bisa menjadi semangat adalah kenali, explore diri dulu sebenarnya. Jadi explore yourself and see the issue that you're really passionate about, the things that you really trust, that you can do so much in it, dan masukilah organisasi yang memang menyediakan kesempatan untuk berkembang di situ. Kalau menurut saya banyak sekali, misalnya bisa jadi volunteer di UNICEF, lalu bisa juga jadi volunteer di Smile Train, atau misalnya kalau pernah dengar di lingkungan ada Nature Conservancy, lalu di education selain dibangun sekolah, we're still very small, tapi if you want to volunteer yourself in a big NGO, you can go to Tanoto Foundation. There are so many platforms to develop our volunteerism menurut saya.
For Syahril, as you mentioned before that you have a big idea but not done yet. How can you know that you're on the right track? How can you know that you're on the right track? How can we know that we work some idea and we're on the right track?
We are on the right track.
Yeah.
In my case, I think in the idea that I shared, it was because first, you identify the problem that you want to solve. Second, you survey all the solutions that have been proposed in the past and figure out why, kenapa tak boleh selesai masalah tu. Then you realize that maybe the solution lies elsewhere. Maybe the solution lies in a radical idea. And whenever you see a radical idea, you will always feel hesitant. Kenapa ya? Because you will start thinking, kalau semudah itu, mungkin orang lain sudah fikirkan. Never doubt yourself. Always look at the idea, make sure that you check and really feel strongly intellectually about the idea. You think if the idea, however simple it is, if it's not been done, doesn't mean it's wrong. If somebody else hasn't said it, doesn't mean it's wrong. Oftentimes you will find the idea is not implemented, walaupun so simple ya, mudah. Dalam kes saya ini, yang contoh yang saya bagi ini, is just for government to start spending and give a job guarantee. Then you realize, if it's so simple, why hasn't government done it? You realize actually it's all sorts of other reasons. For example, certain interests yang takkan mahu perkara ini berlaku. You realize it's because it's a wrong ideology of looking at economics. So you must trust your process, trust yourself. And if you believe that the idea is based on solid hujah, argument and facts that you can defend to yourself, go for it. Whether or not you can implement it, ask me maybe in 3 or 4 years, hopefully. If you want to invite me
Okay,
back
3
again,
or 4 years.
come.
I will catat your number ya. Okay. I will open question and answer. Maybe one question.
Thank you for the opportunity. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dinda Meisari, and I'm an international relations student from Riau University. It's far, but currently I'm an intern in CNBC Indonesia, so that's why I'm in Jakarta. I have a question to Mbak Maria, like what you said before that volunteerism changed your life, so do I. I will be the happiest person when I can contribute to society and people. But the situation or the way will not always as we want. I mean, like, I have a project with my friends together, unlucky children who doesn't has any privilege to school. Yes, we still have that children in our country. But I got so much problem, something like budgets problem, administration's problem, and support problem from the government there. The question is, when you start to establish Bangun Sekolah, I know that you have to make a rigid, no, it's not a rigid, but an absolute vision to make Bangun Sekolah will be there for 10 years or 20 years or anything. So what is your first reason and vision why you make this Bangun Sekolah? And so far away, you make Bangun Sekolah in 2018 and it's still 2019, but what is your biggest problem to your foundation and what is the idea or how you solve that problem? And the last question, how to be a part of your Bangun Sekolah? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, very interesting question and also very strong interest there in social issues. I found that there is an inequality between the education quality in the city area of Indonesia and in the rural areas. The first 3 inequalities that I saw was the technology penetration. The second was the ability to speak foreign language, especially English, because we all speak English. And the third was in terms of the quality of teachers. Like not every teacher in the rural areas is graduated, have bachelor's degree. Some of them are like lulusan SMA, lulusan SMK, dan itu sangat memprihatinkan because their level of education decides whether they're going to focus on teaching or not. The teachers who don't have the proper amount of salary in the school will do certain kind of jobs beside. So kayak mengajarnya hanya part time dan itu sangat memprihatinkan, kayak kita harus memberi support supaya guru-guru tersebut bisa punya bachelor's degree in education dan sangat proper.
Oke, boleh langsung ke depan aja. Langsung aja Kang. Boleh di sebelah sini, saya akan pindah. Kita selesaikan pertanyaan untuk Mbak Maria dulu sebelum ke Kang Emil.
Okay, so in order to join us, you can access our website www.bangunsekolah.com. Kita selalu ada pembukaan volunteers every 6 months and you are always welcome to apply. Yeah, thank you.
What is your best idea so far?
I think if I have to make one word, the best idea from me is creating happiness. I use my power now as a leader to make a change, of course, and that change creates so many happiness. For example, I created a program called Home Medicare, bringing doctors to the homes of the poor. In our terms, we call it Layad Rawat. So instead the poor go to the hospital, we bring doctor to the homes of the poor. Yeah. It's been for 14 cities now. Another example, when I was a city mayor, the reason I jumping from architects, private sector, my comfort zone, to mayor, because I was an angry citizen. Yeah. That time, before 2013, nobody walks the city. Happiness only found in the shopping mall. You have, which is true for urban children, yeah, and still true today, especially maybe in Jakarta. So I said, let's take over the city, yeah. So I entered the politics with nothing to lose attitude, because I had already a good life, beautiful wife, 2 kids. So I entered, I won, then I started what I call happiness projects. Yeah. What is happiness projects? I did a survey, and we found out that the happiness from the Western side perspective is a bit different from Eastern or specifically Bandung people. From 10 aspects of happiness, security, food, blah, 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 number 1 is family harmony. So for Bandung people, number 1 source of happiness that time was family harmony. Second is social interaction. Yeah. That's why social interaction is very important. Physically or digitally, we need to have these social interactions. Yeah. That's why in order to have more social interaction, please follow my Instagram @Ridwan Kamil. Why? Because the last 3 years, I matchmaking my follower. They get married because of my Instagram marriage service. Jadi yang mau jodoh DM saya ya. My track record 6 couple married because because of my Instagram. If you see the slides, yeah, this is a big question. Are you happy? If you're happy, keep doing what you are doing, right? But if you're not happy, then you have options. You want to change, yeah, or not. If you want to change, then you start something to make a change. So before 2013, I was an angry citizen. I'm not happy. I was not happy. So I decided I have to do something, and politics will be the best. Yeah. And also, if you see the happiness chart, and this is very Indonesian, Pak. Yeah. The highest form of happiness is volunteering, being volunteer. Yeah. So I think that's also create my mindset that to bring happiness is to ask this millennial to join, make a change in the form of any volunteers. Yeah, we call it a pentahelix theory. Yeah, ABCGM is 5. Collaboration between academician, B business, C community, G me, government, M media. So this is my way of bringing happiness, my best ideas, yeah? But in the form of decision makers. We know Indonesia is full of good people. I tell you the survey, coba tampilkan. In 2018, there was a survey about what we call generosity index. Yeah. Which country is the most generous in the world? And number 1 is Indonesia. Keren nggak? So if somebody ask me, Mr. Ridwan, what is the world-class quality of Indonesian? Kalau saya bilang, well, teknologi Amerika duluan. Bilang industri, Tiongkok udah duluan. Tapi kita ini adalah negara paling baik hati sedunia. Ya, so I tested this quality of happiness. Yeah, last year I campaigned for Rohingya refugees. I said to my follower, today is 11.2 million, by the way. Pamer. Itu modal saya buat pensiun. If I retire as a governor, I use my 11.2, I will be the endorser for product. Mayan 50 juta sekali jempol kan. So I tested this value, Pak Dino, last year during the Rohingya crisis. I said to my followers, hey, let's have some donation campaign. Yeah. So we use the kitabisa.com, it's a crowd funding platform. And kitabisa.com asked me, Pak Ridwan, how much for your campaign? I said 1 miliar rupiah, yeah, 1 billion rupiah. For how long the campaign? I said 30 days. Okay. It turned out only 7 days, not 30 days, it's already 4.2 billion rupiah. Tadinya 30 hari target 1 miliar, baru 7 hari sudah 4,2 miliar. So I believe, yeah, because happiness is the one who give, yeah, bukan mereka yang menerima, tapi mereka yang memberi. Happiness itu tangan di atas, bukan tangan di bawah, kira-kira begitu. So because the campaign for Rohingya is online, so there is a testimonial box within the campaign. 17,000 netizens for this 4.2 billion rupiah. So I sample one of the donor. One was elementary school, 10 years old. He wrote to me, Pak Ridwan, today I skip my lunch, I give the money for Rohingya people. I'm so happy he's representing the quality of Indonesia, and he's still elementary school, ya, 10 tahun, kira-kira begitu. I sample another, this one an adult, mak-mak lah ya. Lady, she donated around 350,000 rupiah. So I read the testimony, Pak Ridwan, I donate 350,000 rupiah for Rohingya. I sold the ring. Dia jual cincin, Bu. Tapi ada kalimat di bawahnya. Saya jual cincin dari pemberian mantan yang kawin duluan. Jadi dulu dia di PHP, cincinnya tertinggal di lemari, tiap hari dilihat bikin kesel. Ada kampanye kebaikan dari Pak Ridwan, daripada kasuat-suat bahasa Sundanya, jual aja kira-kira. So this is just another small illustration, ya. How I'm very happy as a governor now, because you need a happy people and person to make the people happy also. But I use my political powers to change in public service. We call it delivery service. Doctor, we deliver doctor. Not only pizza, we deliver doctor. Yeah. Second, we create a mobile clinic called Empus. Yeah. Empus, mobile puskesmas. I like to make my program something unique, yeah, in terminology. So, but the testimony was very funny, Pak Dino. The mother in the village said, Mr. Governor, since you changed the word puskesmas to empus, my kids now wants to go to clinic. Because empus is coming. Inside, we have 2 spaces for doctors. And the doctors can have some telemedicine, it's like teleconference, discussing the issues in the rural area to the specialist doctor anywhere in the world. Yeah, is using 4.0. Another example I created happiness is I'm giving today, this year, 100 small minibus, yeah. We call it like a transformer cars. Yeah, because this minibus you can change for any occasion. One occasion you can bring people, yeah. One occasion you can change the bus, becoming the movie at night, yeah, cinema. You can also use this for dangdutan or sunatan for people who don't want to have a very expensive equipment with sound system. So inside the car you have sound system, you have a projector and so on and so on. We call it Maskara. Another abbreviation, Mobil Aspirasi Kampung Juara. So this is what I do, yeah. I use my imagination, I use my design thinking skill, I convince the parliament to finance, we deliver happiness, and now, because before the rural people always like this, Pak Ridwan, the cars given to the village chief, yeah, kepala desa, is always used for private use of this kepala desa, yeah. We cannot borrow the car, yeah. That's why I changed the game in West Java. The car given to desa must be in the form of, apa namanya, everybody can borrow and use according to their needs, kira-kira begitu. Yeah. We have 5,000 villages. In the next 4 years, we will deliver this 5,000 maskaras. Yeah, to another issue. This is very important. Yeah. Urban people tends to be more stressful compared to rural people. Yeah. Last week, K-pop star suicide, right? It's really bothering. So I don't want to have my people to have very stressful or have depression. So we created a delivery service for counseling in the form of mobile counseling, in the form of Pinky car. Okay, coba tampilkan. So if you see a Pinky minibus, yeah, running around in the cities in West Java, inside you have psychologists, you have counselor, dan ustad. Because you have option which person you want to talk to, shoulder to cry on, right? Professional psychologist, religious ustad. Yeah. 60% about the consultation for the stressful urban citizen, 60% about love life. Ditikung teman, LDR kelamaan, putus cinta, 60%. What I'm happy, Pak Dino, 20% about school bullying. So elementary school use my service. They come, kalau ada fotonya, nah ya, ada nggak kelihatan dari sini? They come, they know because they, again, this is the beauty of digital connection with the leaders, yeah. So many elementary school follow my account. So they know. It's today's phenomenon. So they know that I have this mobile counseling. So they come, instead of talking to the regular teacher, maybe they don't have a solution, they talk to my service here. Yeah. So school bullying, love life, domestic violence also they discuss here. So the rate of stressful people, a tendency to suicide is very, very low. Yeah. So this is what I call delivering happiness in the form of public service, using my power as a leader. Why I have so many innovation? Because I listen. How I listen? I read your comments. Yang julid-julid. Every time I post in Instagram, 3,000 comment, 5,000 comment. So I read your nyinyir julid comment, and I transform this criticism into action. Yeah. Last example. Pak Ridwan, we have a broken homes because of floods, my neighbor. Pak Ridwan, we cannot afford to pay for the hospital. Yeah. Jadi, the issue is humanity issues. And the typical government is always, oh, you have to report first, then we will register your needs. It takes months just to solve. So as a government and also used to be the civil society leader, Before I become a political leader, I created Bandung Creative City Forum, I created Indonesian Urban Farming Movement, so I was a civil society leader. So my mindset now is a mix of civil society thinking. I was also assistant professor in urban planning, so my mindset also is about scientific decision, but also politician at the same time. So I created what we call Jabar Quick Response. Yeah. What is Jabar Quick Response? It's a working unit to respond in 48 hours of humanity needs. Ya. Rumah runtuh, rumah sakit yang nggak bisa ditebus, kan kira-kira begitu ya. Anak jalanan, pokoknya yang sifatnya humanity, saya gunakan ini. But not everybody understand the use. Sometimes they just put the complaint for whatever. Pak, saya punya hutang motor, boleh dibantu nggak? Damu. Disangkanya quick response bisa bayarin utang motor. But that's Indonesia ya. Yeah. Negeri berflower plus 62. Okay, but basically, sorry to have some long answer, but my point is, at the end, if I contemplate about my existence as a person, I want to be a useful person to society. And I'm very grateful God gave me a very fundamental position to become the leader of 50 million people, 1.5 more than Malaysia. Yeah, Malaysia is 30 million, mine is 50 million. Pak. It's very different. So my campaign as the governor more complex than the Mahathir Muhammad campaign. Because in Malaysia, you have to convince, I think, 17 million people to vote. I have to convince 33 million people to vote. Yeah, this is very difficult. But my point is, this is what I do, and that's what makes me happy. Because what makes me happy is because I give. Yeah, I do not take, I give, and using the power of political power. So I think. Kalau saya bisa, semua yang mendengar suara saya, insya Allah pasti bisa. Setuju? Yang penting, you have a will, ya. You have determination, you have the will, you have a strong vision also, and you love what you do and do what you love. That's more or less my mantra of happiness. Thank you.
Pak, maybe beside endorsement, you can join stand-up comedy after you tired. Okay, one question for Kang Emil. Why we don't have any Ridwan Kamil in Indonesia? Any other Ridwan Kamil in Indonesia? Why don't we have that? We only have one Ridwan Kamil. We have to create other Ridwan Kamil in Indonesia.
This is a very important answer, okay? Listen, I come to existence because of the bless of democracy. Setuju? Without democracy, without direct voting, one man, one vote, a person like Ridwan Kamil, yeah, could not be exist because you have to follow the long ladder of political parties, politics, and so on and so on. That's why you have to fight for this bless of demokrasi. Jadi jangan mau lagi ditukar-tukar, dipilih DPRD, dipilih langsung oleh Anda. Your vote is very important. Yeah. So if we keep this direct election democracy, pilkada, pilpres, yeah, I think I'm very optimistic. The next 30 to 40 years, you will find more and better version of Ridwan Kamil. Setuju? Yeah. So I think that's my answer is because of the democracy. Yeah. Second, I think you have to change your mindset. Yeah. In Islamic terms, we have a word called khairunas anfa'uhum linas. Translation is the best person is who give the energy, the usefulness of their life to others. Ya. Jadi menurut saya itu, kalau Anda punya spirit giving, punya spirit berbagi, punya spirit ingin bermanfaat, di situ cikal bakal lahir orang-orang yang akan seperti saya masuk ke public service, kan begitu. Tapi ada tips, jadi pemimpin hari ini harus sabar, ya. Diam diomongin, gerak diomongin tuh. Ya. Semuanya diomongin karena kecepatan jempol Anda melebihi kecepatan cahaya. Jadi keikhlasan menjadi pemimpin itu penting hari ini. Ya. Kerja itu tadi saya bilang love what you do what you love, ya. Saya tidak pernah bekerja untuk pujian atau penghargaan. Tapi ngalir aja itu penghargaan karena mereka melihat perubahan-perubahan seperti tadi. Total sampai hari ini alhamdulillah penghargaan udah lebih dari 500, ya. Jadi bukan mau pamer, cuman menunjukkan kalau kita serius punya passion gitu kan terhadap cita-cita kita, yang begitu tuh jadi bonus, kira-kira begitu. Termasuk 2 minggu lalu alhamdulillah saya mendapat gelar Dr. Honoris Causa dari Busan di Korea Selatan gitu. Itu contoh saja, ya. Kalau kita ikhlas, kita serius, yang gitu-gitu akan mengalir. Nah itulah yang membuat saya bahagia. Jadi kalau saya nanti berhenti jadi pejabat publik, I have no regrets, ya. Saya sudah memberikan yang terbaik dari pikiran saya, tenaga saya untuk kemajuan bangsa saya. Mudah-mudahan yang dengar di sini bisa mengikuti dan kita punya optimisme. I think 2045 Indonesia predicted to be number 4, ya, greatest economy in the world. And that time I will be 74 years old, ya. And you guys will be the governor of West Java, governor of Jakarta, president of Indonesia, minister of education. Pokoknya itu zaman Anda memimpin Indonesia. Semangat.
Oke, I will. Kayaknya banyak yang. Jadi saya kasih kesempatan. Tapi, boleh Pak, silakan Pak. Saya merasa kolonialisme loh Pak jadinya sekarang. Saya kasih 1 karena waktunya agak mepet. Oh my God, banyak sekali. Gimana supaya adil ini? Pak Ridwan yang milih. Kang Emil silahkan Kang. Kang Emil yang milih aja.
Di antara yang ngacung ada yang baru putus cinta nggak?
Enggak, 1 orang
Nggak ada.
Kang itu loh Kang yang baju putih semangat banget kayaknya abis ditinggalin
Ya udah,
pacarnya.
dari tampangnya tampang putus.
Bagaimana caranya sebuah ide kreatif itu bisa diaplikasikan atau membumi dan bagaimana caranya ide tersebut jadi uang? Terima kasih.
Susah ya mau berbicara selepas Pak Ridwan ni rockstar. Saya segan pula. Dah lah rakyat Malaysia tak capai dengan jumlah rakyat di Bandung pun, jadi saya sudah malu ni. Tapi soalannya tadi saya jadi pemanas badan lah sebelum jawapan yang sebenar-benarnya. So the question was bagaimana mau jadikan wang ya? How do you monetize an idea like what Pak Ridwan had outlined in his very inspiring presentation. Jadi bagi saya pertama, this is one example before I answer your question directly. This is one example why Indonesia, and I mean this very sincerely, and I was speaking to Maria just now before we came on stage. You shouldn't underestimate your human capital and your power of imagination. I repeat that Indonesia should not underestimate that. People always think of Singapore as the center of innovation in this region. People always think of Malaysia as somewhat like Singapore, but just not there yet, but better than everybody else. I honestly feel in terms of technological innovation, what I've seen in the startup community and in terms of tech innovation and adaptation in this region, Indonesia, I feel is very, very much number 1, if not number 2, in this ASEAN region. So I would say that's one thing that you should think about very, very carefully. So I credit that. In terms of how do you monetize, right? So I don't know enough of the product, but what I would say is this. Jika ada yang ramai yang menggunakannya, aplikasinya, which means there is demand for it. which means there's demand for it. Then you have to start thinking about how do you get the whole supply chain of the creation of whatever your product or your solution is in a way that is sustainable across the same region. So maknanya if you can create that supply in a way that includes the people of that region, so that economic activity is localized in that area, you ensure that demand is met, then I think if you have a charging model, there's a way to monetize this. I'm not sure if that's what Pak Ridwan wants to do, because his aim in life is to give happiness, not to make money. So that's something you got to have a conversation with him. Kalau dia sudah ada patent, then mungkin susah sikit lah ya. If he hasn't reserved that as his IP, then I'm sure that's something that he can discuss. So without being too, because I don't know enough about it, I would say if the demand is there and if you can know how to make and supply the products in a way that's sustainable without having to import too many things, because that will increase the cost, you have a charging model, there's a way to monetize.
Yes, I think number one, you have to set your value. If your end goal is money, it's okay. But from my perspective, my end goal is happiness, is a satisfactory level of my people. Yeah. So creativity, we have two forms of creativity. Yeah. Number one is bettering the quality of a product or creating something totally new. Yeah. For example, in Bandung there was Keripik Maici, right? And the owner now, he always show off in the Instagram of his Lamborghini, his Ferrari, from Keripik Maici. Okay, so Keripik is not new, but with his creativity of branding, with the creativity using old lady named Ichi, yeah, as a model, and how he used the marketing of this Keripik and creating a very big money from Keripik that's been there for a long time. Yeah, that's what I call creativity level number one. The creativity level number two is you create totally something new, yeah, from nothing to something. So if you see 7 unicorn company in Southeast Asia, I think proudly we are very happy to say 4 out of 7 from Indonesia. Gojek, Bukalapak, Tokopedia, dan lain-lain kira-kira begitu. So I think also this is my methodology, how to find a great ideas. We have 2 ways. Number one is contemplating, yeah, try to converging the whole thinking into one ideas. Number 2, you have to go more outdoors. The more you go outdoor, you will listen to the needs of regular people, you will listen to the needs of many opportunities. Yeah, so I'm using these 2 methodologies. Sometimes I go out from my office, have some interaction with people, and come back with ideas and translate it into action, because as a leader I have to implement these abstract ideas into action. Number 2 is contemplating, yeah, by designing, by researching, and so on and so on. So I think that would be my answer, more or less. Yeah.
One last question from me. One word to describe how can we get the best idea. One word. One word, only one word. I give you 10 seconds to think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. Okay.
One word to realize your idea is be passionate.
Passion. Mine would be listen.
Mine will be action. Can I have, this is very important video,
Kang.
Pak Dino, yeah? This is very precious moment. Can I play 2 minutes video? Because this is very important for the future of Indonesia. In Indonesia, we have a gap of urban and rural, right? Rural, you have a gap of technology, you have a gap of financial gap, you have a gap of knowledge and everything. So this is bothering me. So I created a program, what we call One Village, One Company. I have 5,000 rural villages. My mission in the next 4 years to create 5,000 companies. Who run the company? Millennials, who like you, who knows how to do the digital thinking, digital commerce. So we have a selection, Pak Dino, in a form of program called Patriot Desa. We call it Village Patriot. Now I send 110 selected strong individual to live in the rural 1 year or 2 years. The mission is only one, creating a startup, yeah, creating a startup in every villages. So I'm hoping, coba bisa diputar, kalau ada. So I'm hoping one of you in this room would like to participate, yeah. Next year we have a second batch. The first batch is 110 young graduate, fresh graduate. Next year we will select more, and I'm hoping you will join and make a better Indonesia through West Java, because I'm the governor of West Java. And challenge yourself, live in the village, motivating the rural people also, creating enterprise, and use the digital skill to connect the village to the world. Yeah? And I'm hoping this is the way we do and give back to society. Buat yang laki-laki yang tertarik, silahkan daftar, ya. Nanti kita fasilitasi, dilatih 45 hari, we have 45 days of trainings, ya, including survival in the forest. We have a skill. If you pass 45 days, you will have 4 value. 1, skill kejuangan, 2 skill keteknikan, 3 skill kerakyatan, 4 skill keikhlasan. Dan saya yakin ini akan mengubah Indonesia, ya. Ini videonya mungkin nggak berhasil, tapi poin saya.
Patriot Desa adalah sebuah program yang mengajak anak muda untuk mengembangkan elan revolusioner dalam diri mereka. Elan revolusioner itu memiliki 4 kompetensi. Pertama, keteknisan. Kedua, kejuangan. Ketiga, kerakyatan. Dan keempat, keikhlasan. 4 kompetensi ini akan membuat seorang anak muda mau dan mampu hidup bersama masyarakat di desa yang termiskin sekalipun, untuk mengembangkan kemampuan rakyat, untuk meningkatkan kemampuan keberdayaan agar bisa menggunakan resources, sumber daya alam yang ada di sekeliling mereka untuk peningkatan kesejahteraan.
So, okay. I have 5,000 kampung villages. I need 5,000 dedicated, passionate millennials to join with your digital skill. Mission is only one, creating startup, creating business, creating prosperity within 1 year or 2 years. Then I assume that would be your best time in your life, giving back to your country. Kira-kira begitu, ya. Dan bagi laki-laki yang betah, boleh tinggal selamanya menikahi anak kepala desa, ya, dan tinggal di sana. Saya tunggu ya, ini tidak terbatas untuk warga Jawa Barat. Tapi desanya karena saya ngurus Jawa Barat, desanya di Jawa Barat. Tapi boleh anak lulusan dari Sumatera, dari Jakarta, dari mana-mana yang mau membaktikan skill knowledge-nya ke tanah air. Saya tunggu ya sampai tahun depan. Makasih.
Oke, terima kasih. So, can we get a round big applause for Maria, Syahril, and Kang Emil for this discussion. So I will sum up this session with some quotes. So if you want to change the world, start with making your bed. Because every good idea comes up from small, simple tasks. And then don't be afraid, just be passionate, and then listen and take action. Thank you so much. I'm Pascalis Iswari.